Just got to wrap up an absolutely amazing conversation, and one that you will be surprised by where it goes. I am really excited for you to learn about how to ask questions. And not just how to ask the questions, what questions to ask, but what you do after you ask the question. Chip is going to tell you some really, really beneficial ways to be an incredible leader. So listen into this episode. Welcome to Flex with Purpose, the podcast where we get to engage in conversations with authentic people who are living boldly and allowing humility to guide their impact. I'm your host, Shalee Sanchez, and I am thrilled that you are listening with us today. Have a phenomenal guest that I actually had the opportunity to meet at a networking event, and we had a really good conversation that got to hear some of your story and also what you are currently doing with other leaders and your just intentionality about the ways that you build relationships. So I am really, really grateful, Chip, that you agreed to come and have a conversation with me. I'm grateful that you are investing your time for our listeners to learn and grow together in these conversations. That's what we're here for. We're all wanting to pursue excellence and learn and grow together. So really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. It felt like our conversation was way too short when we had our opportunity. I know we did spend some time talking, but it just felt like it was way too short. So this feels like it's going to be an awesome time just to get to learn more of each other's stories and just see where this conversation goes.
Yes, I totally agree that when we had a chance to talk together, we both had to kind of get to
Something
other
else was going on,
activities.
yeah.
And it was a moment where in that brief time that we did get to share together, we talked about the professional journey that you were on. We talked about family and kids, but we also, I think, have a lot more that we can unfold in regards to what each of our journeys have looked like. And so I want to give you an opportunity first to just kind of catch us up with a timeline of how you've gotten to this point in your life.
Well, I did not intend to be in corporate America at all. That would be the first thing I would say. I thought I was going to be a rock star. I thought I was going to have a music career. I thought I'd be on a stage somewhere performing. I went down an entire path where I thought I might be in Christian music, actually. I was a Christian recording artist for a while. And but I was also going to the school at the University of Texas, and I was in the broadcast journalism component. So I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time in front of a camera, really trying to tell great stories and trying to see if I could find my way to a really compelling geography in order to be on the news. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be Stone Phillips. I wanted to be Peter Jennings, something along those lines. And so I went to the University of Texas, was the Walter Cronkite School, one of the best schools here in America to be able to do that. And I did really well. And I thought, wow, this is one of those two things is what I'm going to do. And this was 1998 when I graduated from the University of Texas. And if you remember, we didn't really have the internet back then. We went to a library and we had to look things up on microfiche or hope it was in the newspaper or something along those lines. So
I remember 1998. That was when I got my first email address and started
exactly.
using.
This is not what we did. So we went to career fairs and we did all these type of things to try to find a job. I was very excited because I was going to be able to I got an internship to go be on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. I was likely going to be in the Dallas Metroplex, as that was going to be my starting market, which was a top 10 market. I was very, very excited about all of that. And then I found out how much money I wasn't going to make when I came out. You think you're going to be going into this really prestigious thing. You're going to be on television. It's going to be this really incredible thing. And you think you're going to make a pretty good living. And that just was not the case. And I didn't know because I'd invested all this time in schooling and perfecting the craft, if you will, but I had no idea what it would actually pay. And I realized I needed to make a pivot. So I started going to some of those job fairs, and I met someone at a partner at a consulting company. And they said, "You seem like a pretty, well-spoken person. I like your presentation skills. I think we could take what you've been doing in this particular degree program, and I think it would work really, really well in business consulting. Would you like to give that a go?" He told me how much money I was gonna make, and I was like, "I am very interested.
Okay.
That sounds like a very good thing to do."
So it was considerably more than what you were gonna make in
Considerably more. I
broadcasting,
was
or
getting married at the time. My wife was gonna be a teacher, and I was gonna make no money in broadcast journalism. This was, I mean, I thought I had hit the lottery. It was amazing. So I went and did that. I came here to Dallas for my first job. I spent 2 years in that role, and I absolutely loved everything about consulting. I loved everything about the people, and I hated the subject matter because it was benefits consulting. It was writing summary plan descriptions. And I was a creative guy. I had really cool ways of trying to tell a story. I had all these interesting things that I wanted to do, but it was health, Medicare, medical stuff, and I had to do it in a very specific way. It
Mhm.
it was pretty hard to do, and
So to make sure that I'm following you and understanding, it's basically you were having to follow a script and there
very
wasn't
much so. Like you could find this, like, oh, I could say this so much
opportunity. Yeah.
cleaner, or this would be such a, but it was like, no, 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 you have to do it this way. This is what legally we must do, and it must sound like this. And do you remember those summary plan descriptions when you had a medical plan, and
Mhm.
like you turn to page 10 and it would tell you about your dental benefits, and you turn it. It was mind numbing.
Mhm.
So you had all this stuff that I did love about the job. This one part that I really didn't. I was like, man, I got to find another way to be able to make that happen. So I went to a company called EDS, and I actually didn't get hired at EDS. I went through a lot of interviews. They liked me. Things were really, really great. I was, pretty young still at that point in time. They liked me, but they wanted someone with more experience. So they kind of came down to two people, and they said, "You're not the one. We didn't pick you. We're going to go some other way, but we're going to keep your name on file." I was like, "Sure, you will." And we have things that happen, and people get called back all the time. Sure. Within 24 hours, I got a call back. And
No way.
they said, "We've got this brand new thing called web hosting. We don't know anything about that. It's something that, that this internet's taking off, and there's this, we do big time mainframes and, big time technology. And this is web hosting. And it's much smaller. We don't know a lot about that. And we think somebody who's a little younger, somebody who maybe has, kind of grown up in this world might be somebody who could take that on better." I was like, they were like, "Would you like to come?" Absolutely. And I found myself going from, entry level to being a director at EDS in about 7 years. Had some wonderful mentors and people who, put their big arms up and wings and protected me, because I told you I liked to break things. I wanted to shake things up. I could see something going on in this very corporate environment and say, why aren't we doing it like a CPG company? Or why aren't we? Or why?
Mhm.
And these mentors of mine, really protected me. But I did make a lot of, we broke some china inside the corporate machine, but we did it to the tunes of millions of dollars, and a very successful thing. So on one side, you're kind of getting in trouble for not following the rules, but on the other side, you're kind of getting an attaboy, like, way to go.
Yeah.
I ended up leaving there to be the chief marketing officer at a company called Pegasus here in Dallas. It was a company that was in the hospitality space, and we made our money pennies at a time connecting open hotel rooms with travel agents who had people who wanted to travel. So we were that middle ground that had built all the software and the technology. And we also had this boutique hotel group that was very unique, like one of a kind type of places to stay. And I was the chief marketing officer of both those divisions at a very young age. And we're talking now, it's about 2007 to 2008. I'm at Pegasus. I'm actually having a really good time. We're making a lot of successful things, but it's 2008. And the world took a big time drop. And it didn't matter if you were really great at what you did. There just wasn't anybody buying anything. And they didn't need people who could sell, and they didn't need people who could market something. They just needed to lie low. But I didn't know that. I was pretty high on my own supply and thought I was really, really an awesome marketer and an awesome, any company would want to have me. And I was like, that's great. You don't want me? I'll go somewhere else. And I tried. I tried to go all sorts of places, and nobody was hiring. And again, like hindsight, 2020, I realized that the entire world went that way. But in my world, I thought, maybe I'm not that good at this. Maybe I really kind of suck at this whole marketing thing. Maybe I don't know a darn thing. And maybe I should try to do something else. And I even tried to do something else. Like, even if it was like work at Home Depot, I mean, at some point you can't, there's no jobs, right? So I'm like, I will work at Home Depot. I will do anything in order
Yes,
to like
whatever
try
is
to have some sort of
necessary.
a paycheck that will help. Nobody's hiring. Um, and again, you kind of fall into that cycle of, am I good enough? And why are these things happening to me? And you withdraw and you go into your side yourself and you push people away. I remember being at church one time, and there's this opportunity in the class for prayer requests, right? Hey, what's going on in your world? And share. I happen to be the director of this class, and I never talk about myself in a room like this. My wife is thinking about this and knows that this is what's on our minds and our hearts, and she voices something in class. And I say, like, I kind of like just got all stoic and just okay, cool, you got that out. But then they want me to talk about it and to do all of it. I'm like, I don't want to talk about this. And I remember um being very flippant and very curt, and kind of cut her off at like she was saying something, and I cut her off. And um I was in such a state. I didn't want to talk to people about those kinds of things. I had a persona of who I was and what kind of a failure I was and how I wasn't moving on and all of those kinds of things. And it was a really good growth opportunity for us in our marriage, just to be able to go, no, 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 we're supposed to lift each other up, and this is the partnerships that we need to be. And it was a very disappointing moment for me. Like, that was a pretty low moment. I had never really said anything, curt like that in front of an audience or people about my spouse at that point in time. And I was like, "Oh, we don't like this. And this is not who I am. This is not what, this is not what we're going to do." But it didn't matter. I was still in a pretty low place. Ended up, I was coaching my daughter's soccer team, and there was another dad on the team, and he came up to me and he says, "Aren't you like some marketing guy? And don't you know a lot of stuff about marketing?" And I was like, In a former life, I did. Yeah, I knew something about that." And I was like, "But I'm actually not very good at that. I can't find a job, and I'm not really good at this whole marketing thing." And he started talking about, he's like, "I do this thing called," he called it mailbox money. I meet with these individuals, I meet with companies, and I kind of just consult and talk to them. And I've taken this one person as far as I could possibly take them. And I think you could take them a whole lot further. I don't think you heard me. I'm not very good at this marketing thing, is kind of my story at that point in time. He's like, "Well, I don't know what you're doing tomorrow at 8 a.m., but you can be ready or you can be in your boxers. I don't care how you go to this thing. I'm taking you out of your house and we're going to go and talk to this guy." And I was like, "Okay." So I got up and got dressed, and we show up at this place. 6 hours later, I had my first client. And I didn't realize that I could do this, have my own business, do this own entrepreneurial thing. That was never the plan. The plan was to be a rock star. And
Right.
when that didn't happen, then the plan was to be Mr. Corporate Guy. I mean, go all the way to the top and do all the things. And I had really laid that track for the corporate lifestyle, and had done a really good job, and was moved fast, and was at really big corporations and doing some really great things. And then I realized I could do a lot of this on my own terms. I could do this for things that were important to me. I
Mhm.
could build a business that I was proud of. I could have time to spend with my family. I could do this entrepreneurial thing. And it was a hard thing to do. But here, 17 years later, um, we started that in 2009, and it's
Okay.
2026. And,
Yeah.
we're a well-respected agency here in the Dallas Metroplex. And I've grown it to such a place where, there's a whole team of people who get a lot of things done. And it's opened me up now to even be able to do other things that I'm pretty excited and passionate about. And so I had no idea that this was the path I was going to be on, but this is where it went. And now I get to sit down with people like you, and I get to sit down with leaders of all kinds, and just tell the stories of things that we've done, and then also really help people just kind of get out of their own I had a lot of head trash in my own head. Like there was a lot of stuff going in here about what I was and what I wasn't, and
Hmm.
who I was and what mattered, and all of those kinds of things. And getting out of my own way and then being able to do something like this, it's just something that now I've been able to help people be able to do.
Which I'm absolutely really, really grateful, Chip, that you're now giving the listeners this opportunity to learn from you as well. And in the conversation that we had, you had shared that you just now talked about in regards to being in that place where you had mm, thought that you were going to be in marketing and then just got to a low place of thinking, okay, this isn't who I am. This isn't what I'm good at.
Right.
And so, what would be something that you would encourage someone with who might be in that low place right now of thinking, okay, I was really good at this. I was successful at doing this, and I thought that that's what I was going to continue doing, and I'm not doing that anymore for whatever reason. And so what are the things that you learned in that process that now you can share with someone who's at that at that
I would
place?
say maybe there's two things. One would be force yourself to be more transparent.
Mm,
You're probably, what you are going through, you think you're the only one who is going through it and no one else has, and it's not exactly the way. And some of that is actually probably true. Nobody else has your story and it's not exactly the same way. On the flip side, we all have these low points.
mm,
There's no value in pretending like everything here is amazing and awesome when your neck is bleeding. Like putting something up around your thing and putting your collar on doesn't mean that your neck stopped bleeding. And so you might as well be transparent. Be open about it. And I think that would be probably number one. And then number two would be it matters who you are hanging out with.
mm,
It matters who you surround yourself with. Or who are you networking with? Who are you sitting up at tables and having these conversations and stories? Because most people want to be a source of help. They want to have some sort of way to do something. And if you can be transparent and kind of show or know that these opportunities, that there's something that you're trying to build, there's someplace you are trying to go, very often, or it's amazing how you can sit down at a table like this and you have no idea who's on the other side or who they know or what they know that can kind of get you further down that path. So I think it matters who you're hanging out with. If you want to do something, find those people who are already doing it or who have already done it. So you want to start a business, finding somebody like me it's a good story, at least to hear. Let's hear how that story happened and what you had to be open to in order to make that happen. So I would say maybe those two things.
okay.
Good starting points.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things that is hard for us, and a lot of times it's because of our arrogance or us wanting to protect an image or our
Yes.
reputation, is the first step that you mentioned, and that is be vulnerable, be transparent, tell people what's really going on, where you're at. So, has there been something that has helped you in being able to do that?
Um, there's a word that I use a lot right now, and it's purpose.
Mm,
I I think that when you can remind somebody who they are, you don't have to tell them what to do.
mm,
And purpose is this idea of who are you and who are you supposed to be helping? And I think if you can figure that out, then you start to see that all these pieces that are kind of on the board are all there in an effort to kind of help you drive towards that purpose. And again, when you know what that purpose is and who it is that you're trying to help and what it is that you're trying to do, then you just find ways to navigate things that are super hard or things that you don't think you should be that you would rather not talk about. And then you just find how freeing some of that is and how you needed to do that in order to get to that next step. There's been, I mentioned that whole, I was going to be a Christian performing artist and I was
mhm,
going to do all that stuff.
mhm,
One of the things I had to do is I had to raise my own money. in order to go from church to church and do all these kinds of things. It is it's a very humbling thing to ask people like, "Will you sponsor me?" or "Will you think about, you're in a podcast space. You do the same thing, right? We've got
Right.
individuals and people who come alongside and partner with you, and you have to make those humble asks and say, "Believe in something and believe in me," etc. But when you can see that a larger purpose, or that you know that there are ways that you are moving along the way, and for me, actually, it's been fun because I'm now sitting here, 25 plus years into my career, and to maybe not have one day been able to say this is what my purpose is, but now being able to say I know what my purpose is, or I know some of those things that I am on a purpose for. But then to look backwards in time and go, wait, that job loss, that, those people that I met, this path that I took, all these things, it actually all was lining up. It all was about who am I? What are my skill sets? And who am I out here to help? All of that stuff is actually interwoven. The clients I have at Rogue Marketing, um, they have a DNA that I would not have been able to put my finger on before, but now I see it. I'm like, well, that's aligned with the purpose. That's the kind of person that I'm attracted to and that I can help. And that's the kind of company that finds us. That's a
Mm-hmm.
pretty exciting thing when you can kind of look backwards and just realize that all this stuff, kind of wove itself into this really incredible tapestry of like purpose. So my answer, a long way of saying my answer is, I think when you have an idea of what your purpose is, then you can be less distracted from it. You can be less deviated from it, and I think that's what helps.
Okay. So, at what moment for you would you say that you really were able to understand what your purpose is?
Well, I mean, I mentioned church and Christian ministry and some of that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stuff. So, you know, uh, business audience, big surprise. I'm a Christian. This is uh, a component of that. And I think at the end of the day, I have a purpose that is found in, loving my creator and letting people know who that person is, who that creator is and who he intended them to be, and then living out that and discipling people and people who want to disciple others to do that. I think that at the end of the day, that's the baseline purpose, right?
Mhm,
Any one of us who professes, Christ would have that as a purpose. But I really wanted to know, like, well, but why am I wired the way I am, and why are
mhm,
those skills there? And I went to work, and I know you're going to value this a lot. We spend a lot of time working on ourselves and going through coaching and having people, come around us and help us to learn things that we don't know, et cetera. And I was trying to figure out how can I actually put into words what this purpose is. And so there are books and courses and all sorts of things that will help you do that. But again, I was working on something called The Purpose Factor is a book. I don't know if you've ever read it. I don't remember what the Boucher or something's like the last name. So it's a French. Do you know these people? You're
uh,
gonna know these people, right?
just recently
I
got
just all of a
connected
sudden I
with
looked at it and I'm like, oh,
with
okay.
Gab
So
Bouchel, yeah. So,
yes, okay.
just recently am starting to
Uh,
learn about
okay.
Purpose Factor, yeah.
Purpose Factor is great. And what I like about it is that there's these exercises, there's these things, and it's very custom and it's very unique, but and you're gonna love all of it, but like going through it just step by step to try to understand what that purpose is. And again, if you know who you are and you know who you're here to help, that's the whole point of understanding what the purpose is. And for me, I like to work with people who are uh, growth oriented, highly driven to do something big,
Mhm,
and they get in their own way with self-doubt and head trash. And it's this ability to push that to the side and help people stay focused on, wait, if you're trying to do it for this purpose, then like if I can remind you what your purpose is, I don't really have to tell you a whole lot more. I'll just be like, but didn't you tell me, Shalee, that your purpose was XYZ? And your ability to live from that will automatically autocorrect and get you speaking it out into with your own voice. You know your own answers. You just need somebody who will push back just a little bit and say, let's think about this from a completely different perspective. And, so anyway, I went through that exercise to try to understand. I mean, I went through some work to try to understand it, but then I can look at like my rogue clients. These are people who had some very big things to do. They saw big, humongous giants out there who are much bigger than them. They were the underdogs. They had all these things, and they exit their businesses with lots of money, and they find their way of being acquired by somebody larger, or they grow their team to something. They can move themselves through it. And I was like, I would not have put my finger on that. That's who I am and what I do. And it leads me to where I'm at now, because I'm a coach with something called the Purpose Factory.
Hmm.
And what now I get the opportunity to do is, yes, I have a marketing agency and I work with, dozens of clients and help them do all of that. Wonderful. And now I have this ability to have these roundtables of a bunch of different entrepreneurial or business growth minded leaders who can come around a table, and we can solve problems together around the table from different industries and different walks of life. And what I'm now getting to do is help 12 businesses at a time, watch them grow, and start another group, and there's another 12. And so it's exponentially growing about my ability. It's not about me doing any of their marketing per se. Now it's about me doing all that growth consulting. So remember all that consulting I got to do that I loved, and loved sitting down with
Yeah.
those people and doing all
Yeah.
that stuff? All the way back, it's like, wow, I've been able to use all of that and come
Hmm.
here. We're in the world that we're in right now, where nobody wants to read anything. They want to watch a video like this. I went to school to be on video. Like that,
Yeah.
you just look at this whole thing and you go, this is kind of crazy. This is kind of
Right.
crazy how all of this comes together. And now I get the ability to, you know, um, I may not be as influential in the marketing space, in the next decade. Like, maybe my time on that is, changing. I've got a great agency. They're doing some really good stuff. And now I've got this new season where I'm being able to pour into all these other business leaders and help them figure out what their purposes are. Because I think if you lead from purpose, on purpose, and with purpose, then you're going to be an excellent leader.
I am so encouraged by the way that as you're sharing more and talking about how you've been led to where you are, it aligns so well with the audience that listens to this podcast, because it's exactly the kind of person that you're describing that you are serving.
Yeah.
People who are driven, people who have high ambition, people who want to make a big impact, and often get distracted or have self doubt or don't know what direction to go in,
Right.
have gotten into a place where they feel stuck or in a low place. And so, what I am so encouraged by in regards to where you're at now is that you've been able to look back and see how each of the things that you've done up to this point have equipped you to
Hmm.
be able to now do even better what you're doing. And as a coach now, you have an opportunity to bring leaders together. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about, and this may not be something that you even considered, but why you chose, instead of doing one-on-one coaching, and you might do some of that, but why a roundtable? Why bring leaders together to learn from each other? Where's the value in that?
Well, I think one of the things that we just said is about who you hang out with.
Mm.
And when you are a driven leader, um, it they say it's lonely at the top, right? I'm not sure that it's as lonely as they say. I think it's as lonely as you want it to be.
Mhm.
I also think that it is very easy for people to look at somebody who's got some confidence, or who thinks that they want, that they've, is very maybe headstrong in their direction, and to back off, and to never challenge, or to never have any sort of questioning conversations. And I
Mm.
think that is a place where we can get into a lot of blind spots.
Mhm.
At the one-on-one coaching, there's a lot of sometimes it's the exact right thing to do. You need that one-on-one time, and you're talking with somebody who's got that expertise, and they can really impart all that stuff to you, and that's a wonderful thing. In a room where you have 12 other people around the table who are in different industries but are basically at the same level of business, acumen. They're trying to do something in a big way. So my room happens to be business leaders. These are generally the people who the CEO is. It may not be the owner and it may not be the CEO. Sometimes it is, but it may not be those people. But it's those people that person always turns to and says,
Mhm.
"I've got this amazing idea," or "I think we need to do that." And you know what? You have always been awesome at just making something happen. So guess what? I'm giving this all to you, etc.
Mhm.
You can do all sorts of things with that. You can sit on your hands and just try to protect the time. You can try to go and make something happen. There's just so many different directions and paths you can go
Mhm.
down and do that. So I look for those people who want to do something with that kind of I'm gonna say power. It's the wrong word, but they've been entrusted with
Right.
the the trust of the leader to go off and do these things.
Absolutely.
We got Chat GPT and you got Claude and you got all these people who can help you. Yes. But who are you talking to? And where is that coming from? And the ability for us to use a very Socratic method of being able to go, what are you thinking about? How are you doing that? Asking really pointed questions. That is something that you just don't get in a one-on-one time. And it's not something that you get if you're just, working with an LLM or having a conversation with a computer.
Right.
So I think there's something about that. Now, there are all sorts of groups that you could go to. So there are, Purpose Factory is not unique in its idea or approach. But I kind of mentioned that I had a coach once tell me that, she's like, if you're putting a scarf over that neck, so that example is actually from her, right? But
Okay.
like she would say that, she'd be like, if your neck is bleeding and you put a scarf on it, you might look really, really nice, but your neck is still bleeding. I have found that when you go into a lot of these groups, or even when you go into a lot of networking opportunities, everything is awesome. Everything is perfect. Nothing, well, I'm on top of the world. I couldn't be better, that kind of thing. In a Purpose Factory room, the walls are, come down immediately. It's a high trust opportunity. And the expectation is that the world might be awesome, but you're trying to do something big and move on. And you need to keep things moving forward. And the world may not be awesome. And you need a place where it's okay for the world not to be awesome and to be able to say that. So we do something, kind of crazy. We're like, how are you doing personally and how are you doing professionally? We
Okay.
make people come in and say on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you? And it's part of our check-in process. Again, that doesn't sound crazy. That's not a weird thing. However, in a business environment, we don't talk about the personal stuff. But if your kid is really sick, or if your wife, and you had a big humongous fight, or if you're on the verge of a divorce, or you're doing that, like, you don't think that has impact on your business? It does. Your whole head is a mess. So your ability to be in a room to say, I'm not thinking clearly for these reasons and that kind of thing, and being able to get that out there is amazing. But then also as leaders, we need we need our own fraternity and sorority, a place where we can go in where we know that people are going to shoot straight with us. The whole point is if I give a presentation in that room, I want to make all the mistakes in that room. I want that leadership gym, that's what I call this place, my
Okay.
leadership gym, to be the place where I make all the mistakes and where I, poop out and I do all that stuff. It happens there. And people ask me really hard questions and people make me think about things and do all of that so that when I go back to my office and I am the confident leader and everybody is looking at me and the CEO is expecting something, I'm in a position of being able to say, I've really well thought this thing through and I've looked at the blind spots and I've done a whole bunch of different things. There's something highly valuable and advantageous about that. And that's what we offer at Purpose Factory. Our ability to be able to say we also spend time of trying to understand what is the purpose of people. My purpose is not what your purpose is. And where you're trying to lead individuals and the story you have to tell and the soapbox, wrong word, but that's not a soapbox. It's, what am I looking for? The pedestal that you're going to be on, your place of conversation, it's going to be different. But if I can help remind you, but this is where you said you're trying to go and what you're trying to do. How does what you're trying to do now align with that? That is a good stop for you to making some kind of mistake that is, not in keeping with who you are or who you want to be. I think it's a real important thing. I think it is important for people to be able to walk around with an understanding what their purpose is. Who are you and who are you trying to help?
It's an incredible concept that you've actually worked to bring into reality and make available for leaders to have this place where they can come, be authentic, get an incredible opportunity for growth alongside other people who are going to be able to see things from a different perspective, but also are focused on the same things in
100%.
regards to what they all look like in their industries or in the details. It's all going to be very individualized, but collectively, they're all going to be able to provide input that is consistent. And how did you get from the place of being with Rogue for 17 years and deciding to launch out into this new idea of creating this place for leaders?
Marketing has changed a whole lot.
Mhm,
And what people are able to do with marketing and what marketing is valued for has changed drastically.
mhm,
And I realized that I needed to be changing with that as well.
mm,
So while there is maybe less need for a really quippy headline or
mhm,
somebody who can put together some, beautiful piece of creative. Like there are computers and programs and things
mhm,
that you can type in. And for most people, it is good enough. Okay,
mm,
well, if there's this environment out there where marketing's not valued anymore and it's good enough if I can just go in and give a prompt and something pops out and that's good enough, what do I need to do to pivot was really where this kind of came in for me. And I started trying to go back to, again, what am I trying to do? And what are those skills that I'm able to bring to it?
mhm,
And the ability to bring a group of people together was
mhm,
an advantage. The ability for all those different stories to weigh in on other people's stories became an advantage. Where I've come from and what I've done in my own little path, and then mixing that up with 12 others, that was something that was of advantage. And I realized that the things that I was actually good at, I love marketing. I love all this stuff, and I've done some really great cool things that I'm super, super proud of.
mhm,
And what I'm most proud of are the outcomes that each of these businesses, like when a business sells for, X multiple, and that's an exciting thing. And I was a part of that. That jazzes me up, right?
yeah,
When somebody is on the brink of losing their family and that family is restored, that that jazzes me up. There were just so many things that were filling my cup when I was having these conversations and bringing these people together that I realized I'm still a good business consultant. And I don't have to be doing that at Deloitte or Razorfish or, some other big named something. I could do this in this type of an environment. And again, I'm all about what can I do that can be amplified? Where can it go out? And then that person can take it and do that. And so some of my favorite things, I've got a person in the Purpose Factory right now who one of my most exciting moments is when I saw him take what we do in our group and he took it to his networking thing. And he was like, I think if we would actually do this exercise that we do all the time in the Purpose Factory,
mhm,
I think if we actually went through this process in this room, and I'm going to lead it,
mhm,
not me, but him, I'm going
mhm,
to lead
mhm,
this. And watching him do that, it was kind of like this just super proud thing because for me, it's about how do I amplify myself? And he now became you know, the new business coach, and he's the one who's doing it
right,
for his friends and his network. And so again, I may have touched those 12, but those 12 are touching 12. And then now we're at a really, really big number. I was promised I wouldn't have to do math tonight. Um, whatever,
Yeah, you don't have
whatever,
to do math. You don't
whatever
have to
that
do math.
number is huge.
Yeah,
And that's what I got jazzed about
yeah,
and again, there's little wins along the way, right? And most of the people who are in my group, they may work at AT&T during the day, but they're building a nonprofit on the side, and they're bringing that to the room, and they're finding their purpose in being able to build something that's of high value to them personally, but then also to the world.
Yeah.
And again, so like sometimes meeting one person ends up changing four companies, and that jazzes me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, you've mentioned the word pivot twice, and I want to come back to that. Before doing that with you, though, I want to pivot in our conversation, and I want to mention a partner of this podcast, Jennifer, who helps make it possible for our listeners to be able to learn these incredible things that our guests are sharing. And so, Jennifer, thank you so much. Want to let our listeners know that you can go to Jennifer's website and get the best cookies. They are gluten-free, dairy-free cookies, and her website is Bloom Bakery, BLUME bakery.com. You can go order your cookies there. You can set up for them to be delivered directly to your house. So it's a phenomenal way to celebrate for any occasion, and you will be very pleased. So
Should have had some product placement here.
I
mean,
know.
now I want a cookie.
Exactly. I just dropped the ball on that though, didn't I?
Next time.
Next
Next
time.
time.
Next
Next
time. We'll
next
have to have
guest
a
next
part
guest
2. No,
will
we'll have to have a part 2 where Chip comes back,
with
and I'm
product
gonna make
placement.
sure that that I have some of Jennifer's cookies. Yeah, I just texted Jennifer today, and I didn't even think about saying, "Hey, I'm having a podcast recording tonight, and Chip would love to try." I mean, what would be your favorite? Glazed lemon. There's spiced chai snickerdoodle. There's salted chocolate chip. There are strawberry cheesecake.
I
Trying to
think the
think
answer
of
is just
all
yes.
yeah. Any of them, right?
Mhm.
All of them.
I have a big time sweet tooth. I eat my dinner to have a cookie. So there you go.
I can totally relate.
I am all about the dessert.
Yeah. So, just really appreciate you, Jennifer, and go try out some of her cookies because you'll definitely enjoy them. No time to wait in long lines? Neither do most people heading to work. This is the kind of stop that actually fits your morning. Great lattes, energizing matcha, and house-made specialty drinks. Made to fill your day, not slow it down. Visit Maestro Coffee TX on Instagram for more information. So, getting back to this idea of pivoting, you mentioned it twice now, and it, in my experience, is not always easy to pivot. Even if we know this is a time when I need to pivot,
Yeah.
it can be a challenge to do that. So, are there any tips that you can give that would help someone who's in that moment of, okay, I'm needing to redirect, I'm needing to change, and in those terms, pivot? What would be the best way to make that transition?
I think a good thought exercise is to have a thought exercise. If somebody was to come in and buy your business, what are those things that they would change? And actually go through that exercise of thinking about that, trying to be objective, almost like you're the friend of the friend, and just look at it and just objectively say, you know what, that's broken. That's not working.
Mm,
There's the need to pivot. We're completely ignoring this thing. I mean, today's thing would probably be AI. I'm completely ignoring this AI thing because I don't want to learn something new, or I'm afraid they're going to take my job. And if I can just keep my head down and do all this stuff, it doesn't mean it's still not going to do all those things. So objectively look at something and say, if I were to come in and buy this business and I was to change things, what were those things I'd change? And when you can look at those things, then you can go to work at trying to go, okay, and then if I was to change them, how would I change them? Now you have a choice. Do you want to be the person who changes that and maintains ownership or trajectory or whatever it is that you're, whatever that path is that you're on? Or do you want to have somebody come in and change it on you?
mhm.
that's a different conversation, and it's a different way to think about it from this perspective of, you're now in charge. Like, you can either let it happen to you, or you can make that change happen. And I think that's just probably a healthy way to think about it, and a positive way to just look at it and be able to say, what would I do? The other thing is, we're very smart people. All of us are very smart people, and we've done a lot of things to get to the place that we're at. And so having other people around to kind of also poke those holes, you need smart people. We often have the answer inside our own head. We just haven't allowed ourselves to say it out loud, right? Whatever it is, whether I need to take that idea out back and shoot it, it's dead, not something we should have anymore, or I need to stop, piddling around, and I need to really get on it and do something. Like, we know the answers. And so one of the things I love about our process inside of Purpose Factory is when somebody comes in and they say something like, how do I grow my cookie business? We were just talking about that, right?
Yeah,
Cookies are still in the brain.
I know.
How do I grow that cookie business? Well, why is it important, Jennifer, for you to grow this business? What is it that you're trying to do, right? And what I'm wanting to do is let that person be able to talk about all the things that they've already tried and thought about, and had gone down that. And the reason I'm doing that is I want them to get it out. I want them to have had chance to say their piece and to go, this is why this is important. This is what I've done. Because once we can do that as people and get that out of our brains and out of our heads, now we're ready to think about it in a more constructive way. Okay, cool. We've said all that. What we then do is we say, well, let's talk about some things on how we can clarify that stuff. And so I might ask Jennifer some very specific questions. Well, you want to move into a new city. What have you done in order to make that happen? She gets the chance to talk about those things, and she's talking about the different stuff she did. Or like, you know what? I've done nothing. A very honest answer.
Mhm.
But most of the time, there's something that has happened or we've thought about it. And an entire room of individuals whose only job at that point in time is not to say, I'm a marketing guy. I've got all sorts of ideas for somebody like this, right? But my job is not to go and tell everything that I know. And, when I did it in 1998, this is what I did. But, in a lot of rooms, that's what happens. So we deliberately force people to ask these kinds of questions. And when they're asked these questions, it just makes people stop for a second. People have the answers. And just like our kids, you and I have kids that are pretty much the same ages. And we know that it has to be their idea in order for them to actually go off and do so many things. The thing is that's not just for kids. That's for us too, right? It has to be my idea in order to actually go off and take action on it. So I need to come to a point where it was like, that is a really good question that I hadn't thought about it. And you know what? I'm actually a little embarrassed that I hadn't thought about it, because I'm a really high-powered, business leader, and I should have thought about that, and I didn't. But you know what? That's a really good thing that I need to think about. Now it's in my brain and I can take action on it. And I think that we're really smart people. And when you're around other really smart people, now we call it being in the hot seat. So I'm in the hot seat, or Jennifer in our example here is in the hot seat, and she's got her question and she's thinking about it. In her hot seat moment, she may not be, clear-headed, and there might be a lot of things that she's forgotten about and she didn't think about, because this is everything that she's thinking about right now. It's her whole world is tied up in this. But when I start to tell what my problem is and I have a conversation, it's funny because Jennifer gets to be the expert now. She's not in that hot seat anymore, and she's able to, with very clear-headed, ask some really great questions of me. And so it's one of those things where we can be both smart and receive great advice and help from individuals all in the very same room. You can, the other thing that's kind of magic about it, if you will, is it doesn't matter who's got an issue that they're thinking through. Everybody walks away with, you know what? I probably need to look at something like that in my own business, because I didn't think about X, Y, or Z, or that was a really clever idea. That would work in what I'm doing too. You don't have to always process your issue in order to walk away with something very, very profound and powerful. And so that's why we kind of bring all these groups together, because there's just really smart people who have really good ideas, especially if they're willing to both be givers and receivers. So they need to be humble enough and nimble enough to be able to receive those things and be able to go. And again, this is like there are lots of rooms where that is not the case. It's like, well, in 1998, when I did this, this is what happened, and this is what I do, and this is, well, that's not a growth posture. And so our ability to be able to kind of foster that and bring that trust down, and then also to then really lean into people's, own individual stories and where they're trying to drive things from a purpose perspective is great. Um, I know I've done a lot of talking, but it made me think of one more thing. Driven people are so driven on what that next objective is, and it doesn't matter that they achieve something. There's always something more to achieve. And so having a room like that can actually encourage you and go, Shalee, last time you were here, XYZ was happening and you were, so frustrated about that. Can we just pause for 1 second and just go, wait, look at what you were already able to achieve. You've already moved on and you blew right past that. And you're thinking you're a failure again,
Mm-hmm.
but what did you already just achieve? And I think you need a room of people who will both encourage you and then also expect you to do some really great things. So that's what we do in our rooms as well. We equip people with really great leadership principles and the right kinds of people, and we encourage them to, make great choices and to do things from their own purpose sets, and then encourage them in where they have come already. And then we expect that if we've spent a lot of time working on your issue, that you're going to do something with that. You didn't just go, well, that was fun. And, next month when we see everybody, well, I chose not to do something with that. Well, that's not that's not the people who hang around the Purpose Factory for very long.
Right. So what you just shared has so many elements to it that are really powerful and make the dynamics of the group something really unique. And just to highlight a few of the things that stood out to me is that there's opportunity for both receiving and giving from everyone in the group.
100%.
And so you go in with a really good balance of confidence and humility because you're going to give something because you have that to give, but you're also going to receive something and it's going to remind you that you're limited and that we need each other, that we're not going to get to the top and be alone. And you mentioned that earlier
Right.
about there's this concept of it's going to be really lonely when you get to the top, but it doesn't have to. And that's a choice that we make of keeping ourselves connected with other
Mm-hmm.
people. And that's what this group provides, is that opportunity to continue to advance, continue to pursue these ambitious goals, and also surround yourself with people who are going to celebrate with you. I love that you brought
Yeah.
that into this conversation because it is something that we often, as driven people, are thinking about way down there where we want to be.
And
And
that we didn't
so,
get there
since we're
yet.
not there yet,
Mm-hmm.
we're like so frustrated
Yeah.
about, yeah, I did this, but it doesn't matter because I've got so far to go.
Right.
And so intentionally celebrating those wins along the way for each other and reminding each other of that, I think has a real depth to our humanity of keeping us grounded
Mm.
when we're so driven to move towards something.
Right.
And there's a real, I think it's a gift to receive it from someone else that acknowledges that for us.
It's one more thing too. Most of the time what we're coming in there for is we don't know what direction to go.
Mm.
And even if you didn't come up with the magic bullet in that particular room, you probably walked out with 3 or 4 things that you are confident are worth the try. And now you're not paralyzed. You're at least able to move in a direction. And I think at the end of the day, that's really all we want too.
Mhm.
We want to feel like we're making an intelligent move.
Mhm.
And this allows us to do that too, with 12 other really smart people in a room who have all weighed in on that and helped you think about it. And most of the time, it's lots of times you don't even need the ideas of the people in the room, because by having actually worked through what that gap was and what you don't know and what piece of information you really need to have, you kind of have answered your own question on like, that is the thing that I have to go do
Mm-hmm.
in order to move myself forward. So it is, it's all those things that you just said.
Mm-hmm.
It also it makes for better people, like people
Absolutely.
who can behave at that level of intelligence and be able to, emotionally have those kinds of conversations. Uh, I've had guests come into Purpose Factory and, kind of want to keep it all business, and the right question. And, again, I would say this is probably, Holy Spirit and Christian, and there's just some, the Lord moving in a
Mm-hmm.
specific direction. And I do think that's important in my realm. I mean, like this, I told you what my purpose is. So like I think there's a way to point people towards where my heart is and what I believe and what I've seen in my own life. But sometimes just asking the right question, and again, you may not even know what that it's kind of just a genuine question, but that question is what completely breaks something down. He's like, I mean, I remember a particular guest, and he's like, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I feel like I need to say something, and I just will. And that, I mean, like, this is like day one. This is like hour one. Like that kind
The
of
beginning.
like it's right there. Like he came in with really good intentions. Like he was going to be all business, and and he needed it.
Mm.
That's what he needed in order to even be able to do that. And so again, I think there's just something about actually caring enough to ask a question and to let that answer. Maybe that's the right answer, is
Oh,
just
yeah.
caring enough to ask a question.
Oh, yeah. I think that hits right at the heart of it. My tagline is fueled by ambition, guided by compassion.
Mm.
And that's what I think keeps us connected to our purpose, is that, yes, we can pursue these goals and have, this business plan that we're driven towards. Um, but it's really caring for the people along the way that are going to be impacted because of our business, the people that we're going to interact with as employees or customers or in indirect ways.
Hmm.
And keeping that at the center of what you do with the Purpose Factory is incredible, because you're allowing people to remember that they're human. And so it's not all about the professional part of who we are. It reminds us that it's all relational.
And it,
Everything that we do is about the
and if
relationships.
we want to bring it back to that pivot word, again, I'm in the marketing space. I think a lot about AI
Mm,
and these machines and what they're doing. And see, this is again where a machine doesn't have that kind of that intelligent. They have a lot of information, and
mhm,
they can go and look and see how another company might have done something.
mhm,
They don't have that compassion and that care and that understanding of all those things. And so again, we still have that advantage,
mhm.
if we choose to use it. And so there's a reason for you to pivot and to find ways to utilize those technologies. I mean, I'm a big fan of them. Utilize them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They can be great
And
tools.
and
Yeah.
uh don't forget the humanity.
Yes. Okay, so you shared so much of these amazing benefits that come from being a part of Purpose Factory. If someone's listening and they're interested in being a part of this group, they're like, that is what I need right now. I want to go
I
and be a
want to
part
talk
of
to
that.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to talk to you.
How would they contact you? How would they connect with you?
There's
What would that look like?
there's two ways. I would go to purposefactory.co. So Purpose Factory, all one word, .co, and that's our website. It will talk to you about our leadership gym and, the business board that you always needed and wanted and what that
I love that
looks
you
like.
call it a membership gym. Just that
Eh,
term is like,
We're here to do
gets
some
me
work.
excited.
Yeah, get your
I'm sorry I interrupted you.
reps in.
Okay.
That's one way. You can, obviously go look at that and see what's there. You can also contact me personally just at Chip Rosales, so all one word, at purposefactory.co. And that's
Okay.
an email that will come directly to me. And I would love to have a one-on-one conversation and just hear someone else's story and just, again, tell them more about what we were talking about tonight
Hmm.
and invite them to come and experience it and just have that opportunity. Once you experience it, you either know that this is something that you would like to have more of, or, it's not right for you. So
Right.
it's pretty easy.
So this is not the end of our conversation. I just wanted to not forget to give you that opportunity
Well, thank you
for
for
our
doing that. That's
listeners
very nice. Yeah, that's
to
wonderful.
connect with you, because I see so much value in what this is providing and the benefits that will come from someone being able to be a part of these groups.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you were talking about, and I want to go back to for a little bit, is how when these groups come together, there's diversity. And so we get to have a perspective that otherwise we wouldn't have. But in order to often get to a place where we're willing to pivot, we need to step back and become an observer first of our situation and look at it uh, kind of separated emotionally from what is in front of us. And so, in those moments where we have a, a significant change that we need to make, and we get to invite other people into that process within your group, have you seen benefits of that being able to play out um, in a healthy way where someone's needing to make a change and having the support of the group has actually helped them be able to do that?
I've seen that. I've seen the joy of, text strings where our entire group is on something and we're following up with someone or asking how that something went and all those kinds of things. So I've seen the joy of that.
Okay.
I've also seen individuals come together with different skill sets and go start completely different companies.
Hmm.
So the ability to be able to say, I took that and I took that and we made something even stronger is kind of an interesting component. And the reason they do that is because they realize they're like-minded. Maybe one's a visionary, but one's an integrator, and they kind of found that their other half, if you will, and
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of works out really nicely. Or maybe they both have a similar passion, but they weren't, ready to go do it themselves. But together, there's this opportunity to go and do something. So, like a nonprofit or something like that. We both have passion for, um, I don't know, helping boys that don't have fathers or something. I've got a group that does that. There are like 3 people in my room who are very jazzed and excited by that, and so
Mhm.
now they're all coming together with their networks and their building and sharing what that's going on. So they've each got their own individual businesses, but when they start to hear what that is, they get real excited about it. I had somebody in a group I was in really early on who had didn't know how to invest all the money that she had made. She was so successful and was doing all this stuff, and she wanted to put it into something, and she just didn't know where to put it. And so again, like, she got to kind of be like, on Shark Tank or something and be able to go, I'd like to invest in that and I'd like to invest in that. And those kinds of things are just, you find your tribe, you find your people, you find
Right.
people who are trying to do something big and impactful, and you get excited about that. And so those are the kinds of things I've seen with people coming together and just taking it beyond that room. Because I think, we meet together once a month and we're talking to each other all the time and we're having conversations. But the truth of the matter is we meet as a team once a month, and you're not going to make all the moves that you want to make in one sit down once a month.
Yeah.
So this is a great way for people to keep it going.
Okay. I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that when you started putting this together, you had no idea that those kind of things were going to happen and that those kind of connections would be made.
Nope.
And so that's what you were talking about. You used the word magical, really God orchestrated
Yes.
divine moments
Hmm.
of people coming together and then something unimaginable happening, really.
That's right. Well, again, it's that multiplication that just continues to happen, and again,
Mm,
that's core of my purpose. So to watch it happen and to just continue to kind of be in awe and surprise when I see it
mhm,
happening for somebody to pick up that mantle and go do it and
mhm,
take it. I take this stuff home. We talk about it at the dinner table. We might issue process something at home, or I'll ask some of the questions that I ask and whatever. And sometimes it's a big joke or whatever. But when I see my 16-year-old do that with his friends and be able
mhm.
to kind of take something that I've shown him or a tool that I gave him and use that,
Yep,
those are that multiplication is really important, and it is an amplification of myself, and it's a
yep,
legacy building, and I'm everybody wants to leave something
100%.
100 something wonderful behind,
Mhm.
and I like that that's the breadcrumbs that are kind of coming
Yeah,
behind me, and then to think of all these businesses, and that's the breadcrumbs that are coming behind them.
right. Well, so one of the things that I'm taking away from this is that you've learned to ask really good questions, and that you're pointing out that that's really a good leader's ability to do that, is draw out of someone else what they already know, but they're not remembering it
Mhm,
or they're not paying attention to
mhm.
it, instead of saying, "This is what you need to do," or "This is what you need to do,"
Yes.
or "This is what I did," even, which, I've been in situations often where somebody isn't telling me what to do, but they are telling me what they did, and so it's really something that you're bringing, uh from a completely new, I would say, at least for my experience, from a new point of view to say, I'm not gonna offer you anything. What I'm gonna do is ask you to share more about who you are,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna help you remember that so that then you can find the direction that.
We have to slow down in order to speed up. You
Mm,
probably heard that before. And I think a good leader is comfortable in making people be just a little bit frustrated. We live in an environment where we can have anything we want to at the speed. I mean, Amazon will get something to my house in before I wake up tomorrow morning if I pay enough money for it, right?
yep.
They'll do that. Um, our 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 mobile phones will tell us anything we want to know and all that stuff. So we know that. It's a technique. It is a very valid one to be able to just can you keep your mouth shut and not say something? Ask a question and literally keep your mouth shut. Can you do it? Because if you do, you're going to find out that again, there's some magic in that. Because my kids all the time, they get frustrated with me. I'll ask them a question and I won't tell them the answer, and that's all they want. Just tell me the answer.
Mhm,
I that's not what I want for you. I want you to be able to be uncomfortable and to think about it and to wonder what the right questions are and what's the thing I should even type into my phone to go and look it up. If you can do that, then again, it comes back to that pivot thing. I think we're in a new environment. We have to learn how to do things differently. And I think a while ago, it was okay to kind of be told this is how we do it and let's follow it and let's replicate it and let's do all of that. We need to read more. We need to ask questions more. We need to slow down more. We
mhm.
need to do a lot of that and be comfortable with being the guy who's kind of a little bit of a pesky, like that frustrates me. Like
Yeah,
I can frustrate my kids like nobody's business by just not giving the answer. That is frustrating. I'm not doing it really to be a frustrator, but at the end, I mean, I really am doing it because I want them
yeah.
to be that. And then again, I know at some point in time I'll watch them doing it with my grandkids, and it's
Mhm,
going to be fun to watch. But we do it in business as well. Watching those leaders kind of elevate and have that confidence to be able to be the leader and to just not say, or when you do say something, have it to really have that high impact.
mhm,
All of those things are skills that you
mhm,
can learn.
mhm.
And I just think you need to do all of that stuff in order to, we can't always, I'm a people, if I was to take all the things, I would be a people pleaser. I am that kind of a person. I had to become uncomfortable with not everybody liking what I had to say. And I'm a whole lot more effective and a whole lot more successful for having been uncomfortable in doing that. I did have a little leg up because as a journalist, it's a very good thing. They taught me that as a journalist. That's again another thing I've pulled in from some other facet, but that was a journalism technique. Having a question and then not giving the answer, you know, that's a that's a that's a skill. And I think it's a
Yeah.
skill that every leader should be able to employ because I think your people are smart. Your people know things. And if you can
Hmm.
tell them what the purpose is,
Hmm.
you probably won't have to tell them much more than that.
Yeah. But you also highlighted that, and I actually just was reading a book, From Ashes to Influence. And one of the things that stood out to me, I was just reading recently, is that was talking about how a good leader does not live in urgency. You talked about being able to slow down as a leader. You're not just, we got to get the answer, we got to get the answer, we got to keep moving, we got to go.
Yep.
And that ability as a leader to give someone space where they can go through that frustration
Yep.
of getting to the solution.
A good leader works on important.
Mhm.
And sometimes that important is urgent, but most of the time it's urgent for reasons that we could have done something different. So if we can focus on important, then you change the tempo of all of that stuff and you get much better answers because you're putting the time in to thinking about important.
I would love to continue this conversation beyond our
You know we will.
60-minute marker, but like I said, there's always the option of bringing you in and inviting you to come back for a part 2. I want to, as we wrap up though, give you an opportunity to share something that you're excited about right now.
I think I am excited about what AI is bringing into uh, this world. I think it's bringing a new way to learn.
Mhm,
And I am a person who values order and values growth, and
mhm,
impact. And I
mhm,
think AI is is giving us great tools in order to make those three things happen. It's giving us the ability to see blind spots and to bring order to things that we're thinking about. It's definitely expanding what's possible and the speed at which we're able to do it, but it's also bringing a lot of impact. Um,
mhm,
I'm excited by how much we don't have to just sit inside of textbooks and think about way things were from before, et cetera, which is why I want to, I guess, encourage people. And if my kids are listening, um, more reading.
yes.
It's just amazing. And it doesn't have to be, just all the nonfiction and business books. I love those books, but I do, and I love classics, and I like all sorts of things. But the more that we read, just the more interesting things that we're able to bring into it, into questions and the intricacies and all that. I think we've lost that, and these systems are giving us time back, and
Mhm,
now we really do have to think more critically.
mhm,
Um, the world's going to change. Whether we're going to have marketers and maybe we won't even have coaches anymore. Maybe we won't have a lot of things that I'm sitting here talking about
mhm,
that we've done today. And maybe not. But the thing is that if you can get excited about learning things from a new perspective and in a new way, experiment, try,
mhm,
break,
mhm.
mess up, do all that kind of stuff. If you can learn how to learn in this new environment,
Yeah.
I think there's some pretty exciting things that are going on there. And I think that these tools are just really great ways to build impact. And for me, that's what I want to do is build impact. So I'm pretty excited about what's happening technologically. Um, and in a lot of these networking rooms, people are afraid of these technologies. And I want people to be able to put those on the table and say, let's embrace that.
Yeah.
And especially the older you are, I want you to embrace that. Um, I just think that's really, really, really important.
Well, I had no idea that was gonna be
I
your
had no idea that was
answer.
gonna be the answer.
I'm so glad, though, that I asked the question. I am not gonna go into it because, like I said, we're wrapping up this conversation, but I know that there is hesitation from some people that are listening, to embrace it. And so your excitement to see it as another opportunity for us to learn and as a positive tool, I think is so valuable. I really appreciate you sharing that. Chip, it has been absolutely amazing to get to share this time with you. And I really, really am grateful for you just being who you are. Genuinely coming and sharing from a place of this is what my journey has looked like, and this is what I'm getting to do now, and leaving your legacy. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you for the opportunity
it's
to
been great.
tell the story.